What's going on, everyone? Jason here, and today I'm doing a tour of my base along with the complete renovation of an old western town, which I had dubbed Tombstone. Now, of course, we're starting with the POI that I turned into my base, which is the Nobly Cabin, which, if you don't know, is based off Evil Dead. So, right off the bat, absolutely love it. If you don't know, I do love visual aesthetics and functionality in my bases, so you'll always see that with anything that I do, whether I build something or renovate. And lately I've been in a renovating mode, so. Quick shout out to Shots and Gaggles for her help. Normally I do everything by myself, but this time around, since the town was so big, I needed 3 more Landclaim Blocks to secure future respawning. So, there's that. Then there was miscellaneous decor around the town, helping my Clocktower being built. And she even renovated the rifle martyr, which turned into V's gun and ammo. So, of course, we'll get to the town here in a little bit. But just going over the yard, or apiaries, or dew collectors. I always get made fun of all the dew collectors that I always made in the game, and to be fair, it's just for the visual aesthetics and something to fill. Because, there's a lot of wasted space sometimes in a build, and you gotta figure out how to fill it. But I love little seating areas like this. Again, it just gives it that little bit of a visual pop. Alright, let's get inside the house, which did go over quite a bit of renovating. Little modifications here and there. But where that painting is, if you don't know the POI, is the window into the original kitchen, and then the 2 doors locked off. But of course, open that up, turn that into my little dining room, complete with our little kitchen off to the side. Quaint, modest, but you know what? Very, very effective. And come over here to the bathroom. Nothing too glorious, but, suffices. And then usually there's a pathway there that leads to the bathroom, then the hatch downstairs, but now it's obviously my bedroom. And I love putting light bulbs into nightstands like that, just to give it that little bit extra push and functionality. Plus, it looks sick, if you ask me. If only we had those in base vanilla, and you could just craft them and they would be working. That'd be awesome. Let's go to our basement / workshop. Pretty effective, quaint, nothing over the top, but very effective. Of course, my workbenches, I'm always thinking of different ways that I could improve on it. Change it up a little bit from each game. Style a little bit different, things of that nature. And then my infamous armory, because if you don't know me, I always end up with ridiculous amounts of ammo. In fact, those middle boxes are all filled with boxed ammo. So as you can see, I also play on creative, but I don't just pull anything out. I craft legit stuff to replace it. I've went over that many times. If you ever want to know, just ask. But yeah. So let's get over to the western town. I'm going to miss this place. Alright, see you guys there. Alright, first up, the Fine Swine, which really didn't get a whole lot of renovation outside of visual aesthetics and fresh makeover. I tried to turn some of the places into also partial residence, but, you know, not everything could be turned into a residence, but this one actually had a little bit of ability to do so. And you don't realize how little decor that we actually have for a time-based period in a town, you know? And while there was electricity in the Old West, I chose not to put electricity. I wanted to give it that little ambience of before that period of time. But it's quaint. Nothing too over the top. You know, it's not like they had TVs and all that to really deck out anything. A little storage area up here. I never really fully flushed it out, but, you know, it is what it is. Come out here into the pen. I like the way it turned out. You know, of course, I say that about everything, so I'm biased. Nice little place for piggies. And then, of course, you know, holding pen, delivery, export, feeding area. You know, come back here. It's really kind of bland. I didn't put too much decor because I am still always afraid of overdoing it in a build. I come from Legacy where things are bad. Alright, so not too bad. Pretty smooth. Alright, let's get over to Cat's Saloon, which used to be Duke's General. So, of course, full-on renovation of this original POI. I expanded the saloon, did more for the workshop, and even added a residence on the top. Of course, you can see some of the decor that Cat laid out there. But let's start with the store, shall we? Now, of course, there's some modern components on the shelves, but again, I am limited on what we have for aesthetics, so, you know, you do with what you got, you know, just to flesh it out. But pretty simple store. You know, it is a general store, so it sells all knickknacks and all that. Even got a little clothing department. Yeah. And then if you're in a market for some furniture, there is plenty of chairs, some benches, and some doghouses for you. Nice and smooth. I like the way it turned out. I'm pretty happy with it. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into the saloon area, which I absolutely like. So yeah, you got the bartender area, little seating. Of course, expands out to here with more seating, some pool tables. You know, live music. Everyone's having fun. Come upstairs, and we actually turned in, expanded this up here into like a little gambling room. Maybe some poker tournaments or whatnot. A few tables up here. Of course, angled blocks don't really give you a good angle for anything. But then, again, I expanded on the roof, so we turned that into a little residence. It's quaint. It's nothing over the top. But sometimes, you know, less is more, so... Sometimes. You know, nice little sitting area. Little kitchen. Come into the bedroom. Love skylights. I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely love having skylights. And I couldn't do that on Legacy because we didn't have an angled window, which killed me for years. So I use them whenever I can feasibly use them. I'm making up for lost time. Let's put it that way. But yeah, that, you know, love it. And the whole western town, oops, is literally embedded behind a mountain pass, which is absolutely amazing. The only two roads going in and out goes through that mountain that you see there. So I absolutely love it. This town had a major overhaul. Alright. So, not too shabby. So, there it is. Cat Saloon. Absolutely love it. Alright. Hangman's stand. Pretty much, just what it is. Just, I pushed it back, renovated it a little bit, expanded it. Put some, things that I normally don't get to put into the game for, visual aesthetics. And then Kat actually added this little area right here for for caskets. So, yeah, that's actually kind of cool. But, full functionality. Drop them through the floor. Because everybody loves a good execution in the Old West. So, you have to appease the crowd. And enforce the law. The Lazy H. Now, this one is really straightforward. It's just a barn, horse stable. So, nothing too crazy had to be done. So, I replaced the doors. Added some lanterns inside, because obviously fire and horses are a bad mix. But kind of like a shoe shop, General repairs. Nothing too, like I said, nothing over the top. Pretty simple, pretty basic. But pretty clean, if you ask me. The Morning Lumber Store. Now, even though these two buildings are technically the same POI, I separated them. So, good old Jay's Lumber. Obviously, if you need wood, I'm the guy to get you your wood. Plenty of wood. For all your wood graving needs, I guess, if you will. But we go through here, obviously a little storage area. Nothing too fancy. Again, nothing too over the top. It is what it is. It's a workshop. Let me just shut those doors. I love shutting the doors back, I don't know about resetting it. But we come back here. Obviously, we have some workbenches. Then we even have a spot over here for chopping fresh wood. And then I did do a residency up here at the top floor. Kind of quaint. Tried to change it up in all the different POIs. But, for what it is, I think it turned out pretty damn good. Close that. And yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Not too shabby. Go get you some morning lumber. Now, for the hotel part, simple, basic. It's only got 2 bedrooms, but you figure, still a little bit fancy. It's not the most rundown place in the world, but, it's quaint. It's got its own little bar over here. There's a lot of bars in this town, but, what are you going to do? Drink yellow, piss-looking water? No, you're going to drink that whiskey. Come up here. And again, simple is best sometimes. And again, not having any actual aesthetics for old Western town, you're kind of limited. So it's like, what do you put in these rooms? Outside of like a desk maybe, some bookcases and shelves. It's not like they had TVs and, I can deck it all out with a lot of gadgets and whatnot. If I ever do a modern hotel, that might be a different story, but I don't see myself doing that anytime soon. And of course, y'all got a balcony. Get to see the town. Love the way the town overall turned out, too. You're probably going to hear me say that often, but, it is true. At least, I might be biased, but I love the way it turned out. Alright, so there you have it. The hotel. On to the sheriff office. which we elected Sabrina to be our sheriff. So there we go. Nice quaint little area, office area. Nothing too over the top. Of course, we added on a jail cell, obviously. It used to be the hot tub POI. Of course, it was all broken down and everything, so a lot of renovations. And a little armory over here. And the upstairs was meant to just be like a layover little spot for in case there's, dangerous criminal downstairs and you need a deputy or a sheriff on duty to maintain that presence. But it could be turned into a full-on resident. And the more I thought about it, being Sabrina, I'm pretty sure she would probably live here. Mostly for the fact that she would be within close proximity to hear the people screaming in the cells. I'm just saying. I'm pretty sure she would enjoy the torture. There we go. Not too bad. Easy peasy. Sheriff squeezy. Alright, now we got the strawberry farms along with the, like a country market. So, of course, this was all wide open space over here, basically. So I converted that into the farm. Bunch of plots. Even got a field separated for all the mushrooms. And then we come over here, and of course, we turned the original barn into a farmer's market. Which I thought was kind of cool. There is no residential area for it. But, again, not every POI has a residence. And you can make believe that Strawberry lived off the law from the town, so. Because technically the town is just a snippet of what used to be in the area. It's just all the remnants of what remained. Of course, we come over here, and of course, just a little seating area. I like the way it turned out. Didn't do a whole lot of farming. Okay, the Oriental Saloon, which is the same as the Lumberjack POI, or Morning Lumber. But I decided to combine this and turn it into one. Of course, the Oriental Saloon is an official name in Tombstone. If I got my information right, it used to be owned by Wyatt Earp. So I tried to pay a little homage here and there on to that lore. It's not identical, but, just references, But this is your more higher class, swanky, joint. Of course, it also has its own private bar. Close that. And it's even got its own dining area, which I thought was kind of cool. Vibrant, fresh. Come over here to the kitchen area. Again, it's not modern, so there's no fridges, but, canned foods and whatnot. About the best thing I can do, but let's go upstairs. Because we did expand everything, so there is 4 bedrooms. Hotel rooms, if you will. But I love this little seating area over here. Something about it. It was kind of cool. And each room I tried to paint it a little bit different, just to try to give it a different flair. Which is not easy to do when we have limited color schemes. But, for the record, almost every bathroom looks identical, so there's really no reason for me to go into every single bathroom. But again, I tried to change it up a little bit. But again, come in. There might be a cabinet or two, but it's going to be the same setup basically all the time. A little bit of unity. You could call it laziness, but there's only so much you can do, Unless I start sticking them on the roof. Which, I guess I could stick a toilet on the ceiling. Might not get my customers back for that one. But you'd have some bragging rights if you could hit that toilet. Alright, so we come over here. A little desk again. Just something. Just something to fill that void. Without it looking completely bare. Close that. And of course it's got balcony as well. Oh, I love the way everything. Again, I told you, apologize, guys. And what really changed it was when Strawberry recommended the green paint. I fell in love with that as my for a default for grass. So shout out to Strawberry, because I'm glad she pointed out that color for me. There we have it, Oriental Hotel and Saloon. Alright, the blacksmith area. Metalworks, if you will. Not a whole lot was done. I did change a few things, but nothing over drastic. Whoever built the POI, kudos for what it is, but a little bit more into functionality would have been amazing. Just because the way they have the furnace set up, trying to get ore up to the top floor, there's no hoist, so. But of course, a little area back here, water lines to cool the metal. Coal furnace right there to my left, right here. To fuel the furnace inside. Let's run back over here real quick, and let's get into the front office. Quaint. Unfortunately, it was half walls, so half walls. Nothing too crazy with the bathroom. I really didn't know what else to put there. But we got a little workshop over here. A couple hoists, all that wonderful good stuff. Come over here to where the metal pours and gets smelted. Again, there's not a whole lot of room, unfortunately. So the best I could do was just leave it as is, unfortunately. But then set up some tables, added some things, just to make it look like they were working on projects at the time. Straighten out bent bars and all that wonderful good stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's such a small area. But you come upstairs real quick, and see, you feed the ore into the furnace from up here, but there is no hoist to get it up here, which kind of like But a little seating area for the guys that are up here working. But for what it is, I actually like the way it turned out. Then there's this furnace over here. But I guess that just heats up the workshop. Alright, so there's the metalworks. A.k.a. Blacksmith. Okay, now here's the square. Basically for festivities. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to put over here, so I figured why not do a wedding scene? Because I've never done one before. And I wanted to use that moss. So, little setup of a scene here to represent a wedding going on. I actually like the way it turned out. I mean, it's nothing over the top. It's not over elaborate. But it works. At least for me, it does. And I thought at least it was something a little bit creative. Something that we normally don't see anyway. But it could be converted into like a concert and whatnot. And then the clock tower, I didn't go full on the build. We just did something basic. Cat obviously added the workbenches and all that, so a little more aesthetics going on. But I knew I wanted a clock tower. That's all I knew. And thankfully that spot actually worked. Doc Holidays. Now, Doc Holliday was an official dentist, so figured we'd turn in the pharmaceutical into a dentistry. Name it after him. So, of course, we got our storefront right here, complete with a seat over here for work that needs to be done on a patient. And then, of course, we go downstairs to the actual chemical lab, making medications and all that. Which I actually like the way it turned out. You know, for what it is. I got to use some blocks that I normally haven't, like the medical supplies and everything, to give it that little bit more of a pop. And I really love having the visual of the medication and whatnot, you know, behind glass doors. And this one does feature a residential. And if you know Circum's POI, it's a drastic overhaul as far as the upstairs. Because it's very small and quaint, so I had to do some things. Mostly with the upstairs, because the bathroom originally has a stair that goes upstairs to like a little attic area. But of course, we added all this stuff, flipped it out. I threw in spiral stairs for the little fancy element. We kept this area as the bathroom. And we come up here to a pretty kick-ass bedroom, actually. Again, skylights. Gotta love it. Love the visuals. You know, nice little desk to sit there and work on things. Write letters. Things of that nature. Yeah, I thought it was amazing. For what it was, anyway. And come down here, and that pretty much sums it up. Good old Doc Holliday. I'll be your Huckleberry. On to the Lise and Barrel brewery. Now, as far as renovations go, some were done, but nothing over the top. A lot of refresh, repairs, replacements, things of that nature. So yeah, you know, fresh paint job. Try to set up a little scene of here where the brewery comes. You know, the wagons that would carry the barrels. Not a whole lot of options for valves and everything, so we chose that. And if you notice the ground, it's all cobblestone. So yeah, this entire town I hauled out, dug it out, and replaced it all with cobblestone. A lot of work. But we come in here, and of course we have the storefront. For all your liquor needs. Different spirits, if you will. All fancy and everything, you know. Even some Buffalo wine. Got to love that. And then we come over here. And we go to the residential, which I actually really do like the residential on this one. I think it actually turned out really nice. Now, nice big kitchen in a sense. Comfy living room. Decent little bedroom over here. Gotta have those skylights. And, of course, a decent bathroom. Pretty cozy, if you ask me. And, of course, I love up here, little elevated spot. So she has a work area. So when she wants to get creative with her songs and whatnot, she has a place to do that. And, of course, a nice little balcony, which actually overlooks the wedding area. Pretty good view. And, of course, I got lost in my own build. Okay, there it is. And we'll check out the brewery section. Shut all that. I know I was asked about the Jail cell doors, like, do I really need that many? And actually, yeah, storefronts would actually totally borrow their stuff. Yeah, you can't trust people. Alright, so we go in here, and here's the storage area. So a bunch of various barrels, and then a couple things of already prepackaged liquor. And it's basically just the brewing tank. I left it alone. No reason to change it. But just the whole brewing process, you know? But I really like the way the paint colors actually came out with this. The combinations just gives it that more vibrant, lively feel to it. Even though the paint is atrocious in the game half the time, it still tends to work out right. At least sometimes, you know? And there we go. Love that build. Alright. The Raven Nest Bank, which used to be the clutter chest. So, nice swanky bank for all your fiscal needs, financial support, or ways to get in debt. You never know. Of course, you come over to the backside, and yeah. So upstairs we actually have like the management office and whatnot for applying for loans and whatnot, if you will. Nothing over the top, basic. It's supposed to be fresh. It's supposed to be clean. It is a high-end bank after all. Now come back here, and we get to where the cashiers get to stand. I tried to put seats at the windows, but it was kind of a pain. But then we go down to the armory. Or, well, vault, I should say, not the armory. But all the security deposit boxes. And then for higher echelon security, you got further enclosed vaults and all that. And then on this side, we actually have like even higher security. So while I know those crates are munition boxes, just imagine gold bars are in them. Because that was the best thing that we had. So, again, limited resources, you gotta do what you gotta do. But I like the way it turned out. I think it looks sharp. It's the first time I ever did a bank vault. So, I'm pretty happy with it. Not too shabby. Now, the Birdcage Theater, which is an official spot in Tombstone as well. Obviously, I couldn't replicate it one for one, but I did my own twist on how I could do it. Just because of sheer size and scaling in 7 days doesn't really equate to real life measurements, so I had a compromise. But I made sure we threw some toilets in there. But hopefully, it does pay homage to it as far as trying to keep that aesthetic, or the feel. Booths on the sides. You had elevated booths. Stage in the back, front. Front and center, I should say. I love the little sunken in area for the music, for when the performance is going on. Booths up here. And of course, for like a little bit higher echelon, you got these two select rooms. A little more swanky than others. So you get to sit here and look at your neighbors and just, show your inheritance money at them. Let the peasants know that you're rich. In a sense. Or, you just flip them off, whatever. But, hopefully you're there for a good show. But, I mean, overall, it actually looks pretty decent. I'm not a big fan of putting furniture right up against something that you can't walk around it, but space limitations, it was a little bit of a pain to try to replicate everything. So it is what it is. But I actually like it. You know? Again, I could be biased, but I like the way it turned out. And then, of course, if you go into the back, that is where the performers have their little room. So, backstage. Little dressing area right here for them. I know it's not super big, but I didn't want to make it even more bulkier than it turned out to be. And right up on stage, so you can see that visual of it. Yeah, that's cool. I debated so long on that, on how I was going to do it. And, you know, it's not a one-for-one replica of the Birdcage Theater in real life, but I think it pays a little bit of a homage to that. At least I hope so. And not in an ignorant way or anything, you know? Alright, last but not least, V's Gun and Ammo. This one was painted and flipped by Kat. The upstairs decor. I added the gun shelves here, but everything else, she put more work into this one than I did. So, you know, credit where credit's due. Now you got the gun shop. And then you got down here the actual the gun safes and armory. It's nothing over the top, but, you know, for what it is, I kind of like the way it turned out. It's efficient. Then, of course, we come up here for the residential, which I think did turn out looking pretty damn good. Yeah. Nice color scheme. Changes up things from everywhere else as well, too, so that's kind of nice. Nothing too elaborate on the bed or anything, but overall, I had a lot of fun doing this. You know, I got, like I said, Horde Night Day 147, and yeah. But if you did enjoy the tour, obviously I do appreciate it if you hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more, things of that nature, blah, blah, blah. But until then, guys, hope everything is good. Stay safe. Appreciate y'all. And as always, definitely take it easy.